This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Oh, boy. Sometimes the best radio is during the commercial breaks. We're just about ready to go on the air, and Tom said, and Tom and I were just chatting for a couple seconds, and he said, 15 seconds. And I said, hey, how about 5 minutes? He goes, you want me to restart the news? Everyone all set, cocked, locked. Oh, wow. Your dial's set correctly, too. I guess it's set correctly, to USAPrepares.com. We are delighted you're here. There's a link to all of your instructors on the website, USAPREPARES.com. Converging threats are confronted right here. I'm Vincent Finelli. Tom's at the controls. He is producing the broadcast in Minnesota at Genesis Communications Network. Dr. Richard Allen Miller's with us. Welcome, Rick.
Good morning. By the way, for the listening audience, the reason Vincent is laughing every time he starts his show is the pre, like he discussed. And when he called me, we usually go through a series of what we would like to talk about today. And that's why he's always laughing. It gets better from here, I'll tell you that. What's going on?
Well, Rick, maybe we should just take a minute and talk about how this works. You and I email each other during the week, short emails, links, and so forth. But about 15 minutes or so before the broadcast, sometimes 20 minutes, we chat for just a couple minutes. I mean, literally a couple minutes, and talk about some of the high points that we'd like to cover on the broadcast, and things that are new with you, things that are new here on the farm, those kinds of things. And that's it. And then we disconnect, and 10 minutes later or so, we're on the air. And that's really how it works. So this is one of our spontaneous type broadcasts here at USAPrepares.com. Now, during the week, we will do research on news events and things that we're going to be talking about today. And that's it. Is that how you see it, Rick?
Yeah, that's exactly how it works. I have a bunch of lead scouts, Joey, Grace, some others out there that are constantly sending me what they think are newsworthy, and they ask my comment on it, and I'll make comment. At one point, I used to put them on a blog that I had, and when my webmaster died, my website got hacked. That's why RichardAllenMiller.com is not working right now, because my webmaster died last year unexpectedly, and the website got hacked, and now I have to go through and rechange the entire architecture of the website. It's going to cost me like $5,000 to do that because of the hacking. I don't think it's conspiracy. It's usually things like pornography and or sales things that are guerrilla marketing, where they come in and they try to overlay their things on your trip because it's not being managed. I don't know exactly, but it's going to cost me $5,000 to redo my website. And so I use my oak-publishing.com for book sales, and otherwise, stay tuned. My website should be up shortly, but I don't have the money to do it, and so I'm kind of, asking favors and help and blah, 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 to get it back up so I can make money selling books. And that's why the blogs aren't happening. I do a Facebook also, but it isn't like the same.
Rick, let's put the call out. Class, if you are interested in volunteering to help Rick with his website, please contact him. And we can do that. Rick, how would you like them to contact you?
Well, Mahala Marshall Rood is the one handling that. She's the Red Queen that's been with me since I taught at Harvard. She was a graduate student at Harvard, and then when she graduated, stayed on for another 6 years of the 11 years I taught at Harvard. I actually taught metaphysics at Harvard. So we can be very spontaneous because my depth in these areas is actually quite extensive. And all I need to do is just stay current with what's going on in the doom and gloom area of reality. And I can, pretty much wing it.
Okay. All right. So, class, if you'd like to see some of Rick's books.
Yeah. Just send me email to me. I'll direct it to her, and it'll be Mahala that will probably do the responding. They can have the email sent directly to me. Yes, I'm sorry, I didn't give you a direction. And then I will forward it on to her, and she will be in contact. Be sure to include a telephone or a Skype number so that she can contact you directly, that kind of thing.
Right, and that email address is rick@nwbotanicals.org, nwbotanicals.org. Yeah.
NW is for Northwest, and botanicals is plural, and it's the creature under the bridge, the org.
Okay. Hey, Rick, I have noticed that there is more depression. More people are depressed than I've ever seen in my entire life. And let me just elaborate a little bit. We had a meetup. No, we have a meetup every Monday night. And a couple weeks ago, Roy Birdsong came in. Roy Birdsong is the owner of Choose Your Own Wireless. It's a cellular telephone store in Springfield, Missouri. And that's where a lot of our instructors buy our cell phone service and phones and so forth. And we even have anonymous cell phone service from Roy Birdsong. And he told me, as well as the rest of the group, he made the announcement. He came into the meetup. And the meetup has a lot of instructors. I mean, there are usually 8 to 10 of us instructors at the meetup. And then we have the rest of the restaurant is filled with students. So figure 100, 110 of us. And he said, Vinny, people are more depressed than ever. He said, coming into a store, there's all kinds of depression. And what he meant by that was personal relationships are failing. Divorce, loss of husband, loss of wife, loss of job, loss of perceived position in life. When someone gets laid off, that what they used to do defined who they were, at least in their minds. So whatever they used to do, they don't do that anymore, so they have been downgraded in their own opinion of themselves because they're no longer at that function. They no longer perform that job because they've been laid off or fired. And a lot of it's not their fault. It's the economy. It's the parasites that we have elected thinking that they would represent us. So, Rick, we're seeing more and more depression. Are you seeing that? Are you hearing that in your circles too?
Yeah, and the road rage. You can tell a given day what's going on in the economy by just the politeness and the way people are driving. It's quite obvious that nobody is really happy. It's like everybody's waiting for the other shoe to drop. And realizing that nothing that's being reported on TV, how did they say it? You want to control the masses, you control the media. And so the media was one of the first things that all the large corporations brought up first. And so I would say even CNN, whatever, none of it is reporting the real important issues or giving the correct spin on what should be of concern to the public. It's all changed. And while there used to be, the Washington Post breaking news kind of thing, that's all gone. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There's nothing like that anymore where there's pride taken in their ability to report. There are individuals that are trying to do the right thing, you, others, whatever. But ultimately, the masses are not being given the truth about anything. Misdirection,
Rick,
distraction, that kind of thing.
I posted a story on the website usaprepares.com yesterday, and here's the headline: Woman brutally beaten by cops. Tallahassee Police Department Office of Chief Janice Jones, and I have his contact. And the contact is Officer Dave Northway. And what happened is this woman was involved in a DUI check, and these 4 cops are there, 2 police cars, and she is slammed face first against the police car. Then she's thrown to the ground face first against the pavement. Broken cheek, her eye is bleeding, bloody, bruised face. I mean, nose bleeding. I mean, this woman was beaten. 130 pounds, 5'6". It only took 4 cops to pummel her. And I was outraged. I mean, I am absolutely furious with these guys. So yesterday, I called the Tallahassee Police Department, and I wanted to talk to the chief. They would not put me through to the chief, and they realized I wasn't kidding. And they were going to transfer me to voicemail, and I said no, I'm doing an investigative report, and I'm going to report on this. And if you want to provide the information, go ahead. Otherwise, I'm going to do it anyway. They put me in touch with Officer Dave Northway. Now, he is the guy who is the person who releases the information to us. And I explained to him that his cops are doing what other cops are doing all over the country. They are pummeling us. They're beating us. They're out of control. They're angry. They're aggressive. And I said, I believe that part of the reason is because these cops are riding around in these air-conditioned microwave ovens where they have the radar guns. They have the two-way radios. They have the radios strapped to the...
I don't mean to interrupt. Yes, there is no question that the current dragon wagons that are being used across the country are extremely toxic and have actual LD50 ratios, lethal dose 50. And the police, with all of their toys, do not realize that some of it is creating behavior problems in them, like it is the depression everywhere. It is across the board. It isn't just the police, it's everybody. Even myself, I'm watching myself get angry when I would normally laugh it off and have my sense of sweet old man. You know, that I'm observing this. It's interesting. It's not interesting. It's depressing in itself to realize just how serious this is.
Let's talk about it more when we come back. Dr. Richard Allen Miller on Vin Finelli, USAPrepares.com. Dr. Richard Allen Miller is with us, and I've written an email to Officer Dave Northway. He's the public information officer for the Tallahassee Police Department. If you'd like to call the Tallahassee Police Department about this brutal beating of this woman, let me give you their number, 850-556-1726, 850-556-1726. The officer's name is Officer Dave Northway, Northway. The post is on the website. And I wrote an email. It says, Officer Dave Northway, here's a link to the 2-hour broadcast regarding the effects of microwaves on all of us, including your officers in police cars / microwave ovens. Thank you, Vincent Finelli, followed by the link. So, Rick, what I'm trying to do is help educate some of these police departments, because I don't know if they realize what they are doing to themselves. The increased anger and aggression that they have toward us has got to stop, because they're going to start a war. And what I mean by that is I really don't know a single individual who sees a police car and says, oh, thank goodness, there's some guy that's trying to help us. They look at these police cars, Rick, and they say, I wonder what that guy's doing. I wonder who he's sniping. I wonder why he's sneaking around. There's no confidence. We don't have confidence in the police anymore because of what they're doing.
The bear, you lost his edge with logging. You know, it's the police are there to serve and protect, and actually, many of them are really trying to do the right thing. And what's happening is that everybody is on edge, not just the police. I mean, everybody is on edge. That means your view of the police and the driver in front of you and the driver on the side of you. It's all being affected by these, I don't know, cooties, artifacts of what's going on today in today's economics and all of it. It's just, and so, one of the things a lot of people want to talk about is how are we going to get out of this whole thing? How do we change the movie? How do we move to a better place? And
well, let's talk about that.
Well, okay, it's a truism in Masonic lodges. A couple hundred years ago, J.L. Nelson, or not a couple hundred years ago, J.L. Nelson said to Rudolf Steiner, quote, "We are no longer at war in the physical world, that if we wish to change this world, we must first change ourselves, and the world changes with us." Now, what does that mean? Well, one interpretation is that you are so badly hallucinating a reality that, in fact, nobody else exists and is basically a projection of your subconscious into the physical world, where you then can have more type of internal dialogue experienced as an external point of reality. Jungian psychotherapy would say that your daughter is, for example, your son is a younger, masculine version of you that you can have dialogue with. And so you might not agree with your son because you're an older adult, but that's the inner part of you that is reflected outward. And if you wanted to look at past lives and things like that, it could be that level of hallucination that you're all of it. And it's that's what they call epigenetics, the supercode in the DNA that does hold racial memory. I was watching this movie called Alias in the 4th season, where they're giving this woman hallucinogenics, and she's coding out something that was encoded into the DNA back in the 14th century with some, mystic sorcerer or something like that. And in fact, that concept is real, that the physical world is not real at all, that's how badly you are actually hallucinating, and that there's only you existing. Now, that's a very limited metaphysical point of view. However, that concept will allow you to understand what death is and what this so-called Fukushima and the poisoning of the earth and, chemtrails, GMOs, the awfulness of everything. That's when Carl Sagan was able to say, to you, how could aliens not be real? When you realize just how...
Rick, hold that thought. Hold that thought, Rick. We're going into a break. Dr. Richard Allen Miller. We'll be right back. Class, I'd like to just read this email. It says, Officer Dave Northway, here's a link to the 2 hours of broadcast regarding the effects of microwaves on all of us, including your officers in police cars / microwave ovens. I believe that we are all being damaged by these microwaves. Just as our food is cooked in our microwave ovens, police are being cooked with the same frequencies in the cars they drive. I believe you can easily see an increase in aggression of your coworkers, but it's everywhere, not just in your department. Would you like to be on the air with me? Thank you, Vincent Finelli, and then I sent him a link. So I wanted to share that with you. Rick, we were talking about Carl Sagan, and I remember him saying to our class back in the 1970s that it would be quite arrogant if we thought that we were not alone.
Well, yeah. Where did man come from originally? I had my my Mormon doctor yesterday ask me candidly, Seventh-day Adventist, excuse me. He asked me, "Do you believe in creationism?" And I laughed and said, "How could I? I don't think in evolution or creationism. I think something else is going on here." And where does that take you? And, of course, if we're experimenting on ourselves, why wouldn't gods be doing the same thing?
Interesting. You want to elaborate, Rick?
Out here on the rim, Scientific American had this wonderful series. They put out specials every once in a while, and about 4 or 5 years ago, they came out with this special on Sol and our galaxy and why Sol was best conducive for concept of life as we understand it, because we were out here on the rim where biological experiments could be done more easily than down in galactic center. Now, and they had a whole plethora of articles on that topic by scientists talking about the advantages and disadvantages of being where we are located out at the very edge of the rim of our galaxy, the Milky Way. It's interesting to realize that, the universe is so vast, and when you realize, I have this wonderful video on microelectronics and so on, that this guy suggests that the human body is only 10% human, and the rest of it is a habitat for bacteria, viruses, and water transport processes. And that really we are a community, like a galaxy or universe of our own, with all kinds of different life. And we now know that about the soil with our concepts of mycorrhiza and the nature of what constitutes a habitat. It's interesting to realize that there's more going on, and that our worldviews or assumed truths are what set up our realities and their limitations. That's one of the chapters in my book that I train Navy SEALs, how to change a belief. That was chapter 4, how to change belief systems like you would a pair of clothing. It's extremely important to realize that your belief system may not allow you to survive or evolve, and that belief systems should be considered tools, not given absolutes.
Rick, if someone wants to read that book, which book are you speaking?
That'd be the Power Tools for the 21st Century. These are the 8 protocols that I developed for Navy SEALs to make them supermen, literally, super soldiers. And it gave them enough of an edge that they were undefeatable, literally undefeatable. Now they can blow them up in airplanes because they know too much. But in the past, these tools allowed them to be able to be absolutely correct in their decision-making, for example. That's chapter 1. Chapter 3. There's a variety of different power tools that I developed that can now be used by the public for your own personal evolution, where you have to get off that couch and begin the arduous personal process of taking personal responsibility for your own evolution. It's going to happen, whether you do it now or later. It's going to happen. And most people call it death. That's another humanistic psychology approach to spirituality, and what that is and what it is not.
Rick, I'm at your website, and I'm looking at Power Tools for the 21st Century, and I believe that you're willing to... I'm sorry, what was that?
I didn't hear. What?
Rick, I just wanted to let you know that I'm at your website, and I see Power Tools for the 21st Century, $21. And if someone wants to order that, will you autograph that for them?
They're all autographed, yeah. Every day. My office manager at Dell gives me a big stack of books. Before I can do anything, I have to, scratch out my name and the date. I put a date when I did it, too. So, there's all of that. But, yes, it's not that big a deal. It's just me. But really, it isn't about me and the fact I wrote it. These are tools that have been proven to work. And when you talk about being able to change a belief system, that might be the difference of you getting out of Iraq alive or dead. And Fukushima is another metaphor in that same concept of how do you get out of this situation. And it offers you directions in directing your mind, controlling it, like not as an unruly little brat child, but, taking responsibility. You know, one of the things that I state in there is that you do not have rights. You have responsibilities, that like freedom. If you want to be free, you know, they're not going to give it to you. Nobody's going to give that to you for free. You're going to have to go out and earn it. And that means you have a responsibility for the thoughts you choose to entertain, including whether it was come in from microwave, it came in from your childhood, or someone is beaming messages into your brain like electronic stalking. It doesn't matter. Your first line of defense in that regard is taking responsibility for the thoughts you choose to entertain. It's simple.
Rick, we've got Gino on the line. Gino,
cool.
Welcome to USAPrepares.com.
Hi, I got a couple.
Hey, Gino. You did make it. Good, cool.
Well, what you just talked about the microwaves and how it's causing anger and depression or whatever among, like, the masses and also the police. Does any of this have anything to do with the solar flares, the CMEs, changing our consciousness?
Oh, yeah, they're all in certain solar flares, CMEs, have frequency bands that are in the microwave. Yes, of course. Most of them, luckily, are absorbed by our, ecosphere and our atmosphere. However, all of it has to do with basically destructuring water. The microwave experiment that's done by grade school kids is that when they take and feed out of a well plant water, it grows, and if they take and microwave that water, the plant dies. And the reason the plant dies is because it does not recognize the structure of water, because it has been destructured from the inside out. In fact, you are destructuring water when you boil it, which is a possible strong argument for the use of what we call fresh, raw vegetables and eating fresh foods rather than heated and prepared. Now, that's my personal discovery that I'm making right now. And this next month, because my cholesterols are high, I'm a little high, I'm going to start eating less meat and work with more raw vegetables and watch what that does to my mental attitude and the waters in my body.
Okay, now, is there any positive effects coming from these solar flares and CMEs?
Oh, yeah, the plants, your marijuana, all of it loves it. And
okay, you were talking about the gamma rays.
Of cannabinoids better than that. That's all of these CMAs are like have dosimetry in different organs of the body and or organs in the plant. And mostly extra sunlight, it loves outer space. The gamma rays are gamma rays. They're just that, and they go through everything and cause, breakage of molecules. However, the CMEs are just different frequency bands of light. And some of them are in microwave, and some of them are, and the ones in microwave and those are normally absorbed by the atmosphere. That's why living on Mars might be a little iffy, and why you might want to think about living underground.
Well, now these solar flares, could they be helping us in our evolution, our consciousness?
That is one Metatron, those ascended master guys that do channeling and all that kind of thing. That's one of the messages coming through, yes. However, the CMAs that you're experiencing are basically normal. We have a 13-year cycle. Here we are in the dead center of it. Here it is. And we'll start to abate. Right now, we're getting it as high-end as we can. 2012, they tried to make a big deal about it. That was a marketing thing. It's actually 2013 that is actually getting the brunt of the sun having her period. I don't know. It's every 13 years. It's a thing, and then some 13 years are more than others. This time is the most in recorded history, almost verging like on the Carrington effect that occurred in the 1850s.
Okay, now, Dr. Miller, your book, Power Tools, Chapter 4. Now, this is what I'm getting about the belief systems and all this stuff. A lot of us like preppers or whatever, I think we are getting angry because we feel a little stuck that we should actually be doing more.
Yeah, as our lead scouts for the universe. In fact, what you're feeling, actually, even the couch potatoes are starting to feel. Everybody's starting to get it, even though the media is not giving full disclosure. And it's because you do have an element within you that wants to survive it was Joseph Campbell that said it best. He said, when you see the kingdom of the Father on earth, the apocalypse has already occurred. It is perpetual in its potential. That means that Fukushima being a possible extinction event is meaningless if you can get into.
Dr. Richard Allen Miller's with us. Gino's on the line. Gino, before the break, you mentioned that we as preparedness-minded individuals need to do more, and we're not doing enough. I believe those were your thoughts. What did you mean by that?
Well, I just meant for me personally, as someone who's prepping, I feel like I'm almost stuck and not doing enough. You know, it's
for yourself?
Exactly.
And I
would like to see everybody, growing their own meds, their own vegetables, having chickens, and a lot of people aren't, and you want to get people going and stuff like that. But looking at myself, I feel like I'm not doing enough.
Well, it's a process. Simon says you get to take half a step toward the door. Now, you're halfway to the door. That means you never will ever reach the door because it's a process. It's not a goal. And that's really important that everybody realizes it's about processes, not goals. Goals are your lofty star, so far up in that heaven that that's where you want to go. But the process is small steps, Allie, is the way Carl Sagan put it. Small steps.
Okay, now, Dr. Miller, your chapter 4 again, in the belief systems changing the movie, right? Now, our belief systems...
part of it, because, see, belief systems are completely arbitrary. They truly are. They're given to us in the United States the way we're birthed and the way we're raised in the school systems and so on, the nuclear family. But the values that come with those are completely arbitrary. And it turns out that the reason there are so many divorces and that kind of thing has to do with the fact that the belief systems in one partner changed from those of the other. And when they're slightly askew, there is no way that relationship can continue as a primary. It doesn't work like that.
And all these belief systems aren't working today, it seems. And it's just like outdated stuff.
Well,
everything's changing.
Own path. They have their own beliefs. I believe it's this way. I believe the world's flat, and that's that. And the bottom line is, it probably is. It doesn't matter because our actual grasp of things is so limited that all beliefs are arbitrary and are right for that person. In other words, you can't make judgment on another person's beliefs. It's not valid to even look at it that way because they're arbitrary. And the fact that someone picked him up differently than you is because he came from a different universe.
But that belief system, if someone's caught up or stuck in their belief system, doesn't that become a loop because it's like safe and familiar to the person?
Codependency, they have a lot of new words for it. But yes, the idea is that self-defeating, and at some point what you'll do is you'll off yourself. A woman would say, quote, I would rather die than blah, blah, blah. Guess what happens next?
She dies, yeah.
Well, that's how it works. And the beliefs are what create your reality. And so Fukushima is part of your responsibility, mental, of taking responsibility for the thoughts you choose to entertain. I'm not talking about ignoring them. I'm talking about putting them in the proper perspective of everything. My proper perspective is that I don't need anything from the Pacific Ocean anymore. Ha, 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 ha. Just kidding. But that's the truth of that.
Well, yeah, a lot
Rick,
of people aren't
are
eating
you
anything
just...
from the Pacific in general. I mean,
well,
hold it, Rick.
I wouldn't eat anything
from any
the
ocean.
Pacific Ocean anymore.
Right.
Okay,
Now,
that was my question, Rick. I just, when you said you were just kidding, you really were not just kidding.
No,
you do not eat anything from the Pacific.
It up by making a humor of it. But in fact,
Okay.
I believe that ascension is going to have something to do with not mass death, because I don't believe that death is the end of things. I believe it is, again, there's your belief systems play here, and they're all right. You know, someone that believes agnostic, there's nothing after death, is probably right too. How does that work? It means our whole worldviews on different things are so limited, we can't see the fact that the fence is painted red on one side and green on the other.
Rick, when we come back, let's talk about the undersea Nazi base, and then let's talk about homemade microwave weapons. And the reason I'd like to talk about that is to prove that if we can do it, they can do it better.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set, cocked, locked? Hour number 2, USAPrepares.com. I can't believe it. There's an article on the website. I saw it during the top of the hour news. The United States weapons are reaching the Syrian rebels. Yes, the CIA has begun delivering weapons to rebels in Syria. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine that? Dr. Richard Allen Miller's with us, and during this hour, we'd like to cover 2 main topics. One is microwave experiments, and I'll tell you what I mean by that in just a minute, and the undersea Nazi base. We've had a special request to review that information, and so we're going to do that today. But Rick, years ago, I was at a gun show, and I like perusing some of the books that are available. Some of the do-it-yourself books. For example, there's manuals on AK-47s, how they operate, how to take them apart, how to repair them. Same thing on AR-15s, Colt 1911s, revolvers, all kinds of information. There's information about gardening and survival gardening, and they even used to have some of the James Bond series books of hobby experiments, if you will. And one of the publications that I was looking
That was
through,
a long time ago, gun show.
yeah, it was.
Yeah.
But so, Rick, I want to be very careful how I do this, because I want to put a disclaimer out. Please do not make one of these. Please don't make one of these. And I'm not going to tell you all how it could be built, because I'm going from memory here, and it was many years ago. But this book said that a person could make a microwave weapon as a do-it-yourself hobby project. And all that was necessary was an old microwave oven that you were willing to cannibalize. And you could take the parts out of it, like the magnetron tube and the power supply and those kinds of things. And you could hook that up to an extension cord, and you could bring it out in the yard. And with some additional devices that you got from a home improvement store like Home Depot, you could add a couple small pieces of common stuff, and a person might even have this stuff in his or her garage, and you could just.
Guide.
Oh, Rick.
Yeah, that's how it works. Yeah.
Rick, I didn't want...
Well, you wanted that one word. It's not illegal.
Oh, man. Oh, they're going to be here in 20 minutes.
Yeah, I doubt it. The thing is that anybody with a ChemCraft chemistry set, which is what I started with when I was 12 years old, can make pipe bombs. And, fertilizer, just the most commonest of things around the house, ammonia, etc., bleach. You can make all kinds of, I don't know, what's that Steven Seagal thing, Siege 3, where he improvises. That's, toys and tools and tricks of the trade. The thing is, even the most commonest thing, like a lead pipe, can be a weapon, hit someone over the head with it. And so it's not about the weapons, it's the imagination. And I wanted to say something about imagination. How about this one? Nation of mages. That's what imagination is about. It is the sum composite of all of us as magi. That's where the term comes from. The imagination is nation of magi.
Rick, I'd like to go back to this microwave thing. Class, do not build one of these, okay? Don't try, and I'll tell you why.
Well, you can hurt yourself if you're not into the physics part of it. You can have reflected back and get yourself burned. You can hurt yourself. There is
you can kill yourself.
And the other part is there's attenuation in the atmosphere. The microwave can only travel so far. If it's in a broadcast, it's 1 over R squared. If you use a waveguide, now remember, when you have a reflected wave, it increases in the amplitude. Remember that law? And a light, when it hits a surface like glass, it amplifies by the square.
Okay. And so you
have to be careful.
Here's the point where I was going, Rick. If years ago you could read one of these books, I don't know if they're available anymore. They might not be, but if years ago you could just take a standard low-powered microwave oven and make within a couple hours in your garage one of these devices, and you could point it at shrubbery, just point it, if a person pointed it at shrubbery in their own front yard, okay, that plant would be dead in a couple of days. It would turn brown and it would die. Here's the whole point.
Damage the cell walls, yeah. And the sun does that. All kinds of things are going on here. Mm-hmm. Did you know that you can now, with your AK-47, you can print your part with three-dimensional printers now? These prints are, the technology of us being able to make weapons is unbelievable. I mean, just with local things in your home.
Class, when I call Rick or when he calls me, this is exactly what our telephone calls are like. So, Rick, about this microwave weapon, what the point that I'd like to share is that if we could, and I'm not advocating making one, I want to say it very clearly, I'm not advocating doing this.
Well, they use the same concept right now. Instead of heated floors, they use this same concept with horns and microwave to dry plywood. And it's a continuous feed where they have these things on conveyor belts, and they have a horn that shoots the microwave at the wood to dry it. And that's a new technology. It's a new way of drying things. What it's doing is driving the water out of the material, and that's what it will do with you. And you can be severely damaged, burns, and or a plant, burning the plant to the point where it dies because it's got a dead part of its chlorophyll, whatever. A microwave is just a frequency band in the entire spectrum of electromagnetics. It's just past the infrared, And there it is. It's wavelengths. It's wavelength size. And the fact that what makes microwaves so toxic is that it is quantum mechanical. It goes in and gets them on an individual atom-by-atom basis. That's why microwaving water will destructure it to the point where the water is basically useless. That means that when you're heating your coffee in a microwave, the water is no longer going to be seen by your body as water. And as such, it goes straight to the bladder. And that means you can dehydrate yourself because you're not drinking real water anymore. You're drinking destructured water.
So, back to this little experiment.
You want to make it, I can tell. Would you like the design? I can give you a design.
Rick, here's the whole point. The point is if we could make out of common household items, and every single item that's required is a common household item to make one of these weapons. The point is, if we could do that ourselves with limited technology, and we know that it can absolutely kill a plant just by aiming it at a plant at a distance in our front yard, that those weapons, it's the same frequencies that are used in radar guns, microwave ovens. Those are the same frequencies that even in computers have the same microwave frequencies, the high-speed computers, the processors, that we're cooking ourselves. And if we can do that with a homemade microwave oven weapon, what's being done to us could be much worse. As a matter of fact, where I'm going with this, Rick, is
parking lot where the cars wouldn't start.
Well, that's part of it. There was a woman, Rick, who was a television broadcaster, like a news person. She was on the news, and all of a sudden, Rick, she acted weird. And what I mean by that is she took syllables from different words and put them together as if no one in their right mind would be able to do this. If you practiced mixing syllables from 15 different words and randomly put them together and made gibberish out of it, that's what this woman did. She lost all sense of control of her vocabulary on the air. And there's some thoughts that this woman was shot with a microwave weapon, which totally scrambled her thought process for a short time.
Well, what they do, some microwave bands, the frequency bands will actually heat the temporal lobes, cause them to ring, and then you can heterodyne all kinds of words and other things. They call that synthetic telepathy. That was one of the first weapons. Now they're using through-wall surveillance, microwave band. It's all in frequencies and the problem with microwave is that there's no defense against it. You can't have an armor-piercing shell. I mean, it'll go through anything.
Rick, in the studio with me right now, I'm glad I don't have a camera on me because in the studio I have a World War II Nazi helmet. And I've been thinking, seriously, this thing comes over the ears. It's got probably some of the best protection you could have for your brain. And I don't want anybody to think I'm a Nazi. I'm not. I just happen to have a few World War II military items as collectibles, artifacts, historical artifacts. And one of them happens to be this Luftwaffe helmet. And it's probably the best protection I think I could get to ride around in my car if these guys are aiming radar at me. But I probably would get stopped for riding around with a Nazi helmet. Dr. Richard Allen Miller and I are going to be right back. We'd like to talk a little bit more about microwave experiments and weapons, and then the Nazi base under the sea. Rick was there. He was there. He saw it. We'll be right back. Richard Allen Miller's with us. Dr. Richard Allen Miller, the real Fox Mulder of the X-Files. PhD, physicist, anesthesiologist. Rick, I was visiting some people who are close to us out of state, and this particular residence had a large family room and a kitchen right off the family room. So think of it like one large room, kitchen and a railing for a divider, and then a family room. And in this family room, there was a Wi-Fi router, microwave frequency 2.450 gigahertz. And then there was a Wi-Fi notebook computer and a Wi-Fi desktop computer. And then, of course, there was the television and the cell phone. So that was all in this particular room. And this was the center of activity in this home. And Rick, I felt anxious. I didn't feel myself. I was absolutely not myself, much more on edge in this environment. And I asked the owner of the home if I could experiment with moving this Wi-Fi router to another part of the house. And I was given permission to do that, and I did it. And the difference was dramatic. But as I looked at the Wi-Fi signals on my computer, my notebook computer, what I noticed, Rick, was there were at least 8 other very strong signals that I could pick up. So what I'm saying is if I had the passwords to get into these other Wi-Fi networks, they obviously were from the neighbors, but there were only 2 contiguous neighbors in this neighborhood, and each of the properties was, let's say, a third of an acre. So there was a neighbor on the left, a neighbor on the right. Okay, I can understand that, getting their signals inside the home where I was. However, there were 5 others, Rick, and these are homes that have brick fronts, and the rest of the homes are vinyl sided with lots of glass. I mean, lots of windows, lots of glass. So these neighborhoods, if this is typical, people are being bombarded with electromagnetic radiation. Forget turning their own microwave ovens on.
You know, the electronic soup that we currently enjoy, and the fact that it has increased more than 10 times exposure than less than 10 years ago. And my guess is within the next, with smart meters and the rest of it, you're going to be damaged biologically.
Rick, that was one of the things that I was thinking about for today's broadcast. The fingerprintless assault on us, the weapons, these silent weapons. We are being damaged by fingerprintless foods, fingerprintless water, fluoride in the water. So we're being chemically damaged by the fluoride in the water. We're being chemically damaged by the food coloring, these artificial food colors, the orange, the blues, the greens, the yellows in our foods. We are being damaged by the injections, the immunizations that take years to damage our bodies and give us cancers. The electromagnetic radiation in the air, in our homes. We are even paying for our own demise. An example of that is our cell phones. We are paying to bring electromagnetic radiation into our homes. We're buying microwave ovens. We're cooking our food and altering.
Well, that's the argument for a tri-field meter and why they call Androids hotspots. That's what they are, and they're extremely toxic. And they're on even when you turn them off. You know, your GPS, all the rest of it. It's a little chip that's inside the phone itself. The technology is about greed and money and has not even considered health.
Rick, I have a tri-field meter in my hand right this very second. And I've mentioned on the air that I have four monitors in front of me. Rick, I can take this tri-field meter, set it to the 0 to 100 magnetic range, and when I put the meter up against the monitor, let's say 2 inches away from the face of the monitor, I can peg the tri-field meter for magnetic. Dr. Richard Allen Miller is with us. Rick, during the break, I took this tri-field meter and I measured some of the electromagnetic radiation right here in the studio. Now, right now, the background radiation electromagnetic radiation in the studio is about 1 3/4 milligauss. Well, 1.5. Where I'm sitting, no, it's right where I'm sitting, it's 1 milligauss. Okay, so that's what the background is. Yeah, but in a broadcast, in a commercial broadcast studio, it's way higher than that. Now, here are my measurements, Rick. I have 4 Dell 19-inch monitors in front of me. Now, at 2 inches, if I put this tri-field meter at 2 inches from the front of the front screen of the monitor, I peg the meter at well over 100 milligauss, and that's the maximum range of this particular meter. So at 2 inches, it's over 100. Now, at 8 inches, it falls down to 3 milligauss, Rick. That's unbelievable. So distance, as you say, is absolutely our friend. Now, at arm's length, because if I reach in front of me from this, right when I'm speaking right now, if I tried to touch any one of these monitors, I cannot reach them because I have them that far away from me. I have them as far as I can put them on this deep desk. So I measure zero at arm's length. So I wanted to share that. Now, the biggest offender that I have in the studio, the biggest electromagnetic offender, is a stereo system that I use when I do commercials and I want to listen through a pair of speakers. So I have or if I want to listen to one of our affiliates on the radio, over broadcast radio, I have a stereo receiver. It's an older Panasonic 80-watt Technics receiver. And that thing, when I power that up, that will produce about, let me do it right now. Hang on one second.
So, what you're doing is forming an argument for why you do not want to go on trails that have been putting in power lines, because closer you are to the power line broadcaster, that big horn, the more you're being exposed. And imagine down the hill as opposed to up next to it, looking for mushrooms or whatever you're doing. You want to be kind of careful where you go, just like your cell phone, holding it up to your brain and having the transmission going through the brain as opposed to somewhere else. It's a radiation field.
Okay, what I just measured, Rick, at 2 inches, this Panasonic stereo receiver pegs at over 100 milligauss. At 8 inches, it's 10 milligauss, and at about a foot, it's 3 milligauss. So distance is our friend.
Yeah, 1/r squared.
Mm-hmm. Right. So
that's why you don't put your face up next to the microwave to look inside to see what's going on.
Yeah, Rick,
even though they have a little window there for you to look.
There's a story about this young girl, who put a cat in a microwave oven. I guess it was just for fun. Class, don't do that. It is absolutely deadly. Absolutely deadly. If it cooks a hot dog, if it cooks your plate of spaghetti, if you use it to warm food up, it does the same thing to animals.
Well, it heats you from the inside out. That's because the microwave goes right into the center of it. Nothing to stop it. And it starts the water heating outward. It is destructuring the water. If you do that to your body or to a plant, it'll kill it.
So, Rick, the bottom line is microwaves can be very, very dangerous to you if you
get toxic, yeah, because of how they affect water. Yes.
Mm-hmm. And
that's
if you,
correct. And since you're 80% water, there it is. Read it and weep.
So if you're using a cell phone, try to use it with a speakerphone as much as possible.
Well, okay, so now you won't be able to have children anymore. You keep it down by your gonads, whatever. The cell phones, I use them. I carry a track phone now. When I came to Lebanon with you, I had that, Android, and I got rid of that as quick as I could.
Yep.
I just won't carry that anymore. And with the grid going down possibly in the next couple of months, October is what they're saying, might be something happening, they're going to be useless.
Class, if you want to talk to Roy Birdsong, one of our USAPrepares.com instructors, about getting rid of your cell phone and going to an $8 a month plan and being anonymous, I'm going to give you that phone number, 417-823-3715. 417-823-3715. Roy Birdsong, Choose Your Own Wireless. Tell him that you're one of us, and he will absolutely, positively take care of you. His store has become a local hangout for USAPreparers.com students and instructors in Springfield, Missouri. He can help you from wherever you are. He can help you. Rick, the Nazi base under the sea, World War II, and if you read some of the stories, Antarctica, 1938 to 1942, the Nazis thought that this might be the last bastion, and it's even been reported.
It's like more than a mile down, and the caverns that are in there are more than a mile high, with weather and rain and clouds and things like that. And it's lead. How's that work? That's why they brought me in, was because of bioluminescence. It's got an algae that grows on the inside of the caves, plural, that, glow, so you have light. It's interesting. What I saw, they didn't go to Argentina. That's where they started. Their base was Antarctica, and it was basically impregnable until the 60s when Kennedy took it out. And I went in the 70s as part of the bioluminescence. My academics were in, the physics of bioluminescence, and so I was involved in it that way. And I saw other bases there. I saw a Viking base from the 14th century. This place, Antarctica, is got some hot spots in it of springs from the magma, and they have created like a Garden of Eden where the weather is wonderful. You can find this information on the internet. It's everywhere. The thing is, the Nazi base was basically considered impregnable. And it wasn't until the 60s when Kennedy hit it with an atomic bomb that they then went in and did the mop-up. The weird part was some of the Nazis escaped into, quote, lower caverns. Now that means more than 100 miles down into the earth, no longer talking about the mantle anymore. We're talking about Middle Earth, or the inner Earth, the hollow Earth that has been theorized. It actually exists. The Earth is honeycombed with caverns and caves and volcanic blowholes, whatever, that allow networking. And now with new technology, they've set up an infrastructure where they connect these things. And you can go all the way from Boston all the way down to Florida underground now. The entire East Coast is networked underground. The Midwest, where you live, have some networking. I, was working for a couple of congressmen, and they were showing me what they had. Individuals like yourself that are armed and dangerous, or building your own underground bunkers. These won't protect you from things like plutonium, but might, strontium-90 and, iodine, whatever, radioactive iodine, some of the other.
Rick, are you saying that the Nazis might still be there?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know that. I think my theory, nobody knows, I don't know. Because if they escaped, basically there are records of a humanoid race, Homo erectus, I think, I'm not sure, escaped the Great Flood by going underground. And my guess is so-called aliens, or at least some of them, like the Greys, might be genetic offshoots of men that lived underground for millennia. And my guess is the fact that we're not speaking German right now would suggest that the possibility is that they ran into something when they went down into the lower caverns, and that stopped that nonsense. Probably. I don't know. Where does weird technologies come from? When Admiral Byrd got his tail whipped in 1948 or 49, when he 47. Went to Antarctica with that fleet and had lost 3 ships. There's a Russian video of that when it happened, with Foo Fighters and jets didn't even exist back then. And it was Kennedy that dropped a bomb on it and punched a big hole in it. You can go to the internet. You can find old video of Antarctica in the 60s from space, because we had tomography then a little bit by then. We were just starting to get up into space with Sputnik and the rest of it, and you can see parts of Antarctica with a big hole in it. That hole is gone now. In the 70s when I went there, the hole was gone. They had already patched it up or done something. But let me say this, there are all kinds of bunker things that they've done up there in Antarctica. The whole thing is underground. Absolutely.
Rick, so there have been all of these reports throughout the years after the war. I'm talking about World War II, that Adolf Hitler, Eva Braun committed suicide. I don't believe it. I mean,
well, I don't know about that part. Yeah. And then there is the boys from Brazil, where you clone them. I don't know. I really don't know. What I do know is there was and is still very active cells of Nazis and their so-called 1,000-year war.
Mm-hmm. And what I'm saying is I don't personally believe, in my opinion, I don't believe that Adolf Hitler committed suicide. His body and that of Eva Braun were burned, and they're dead. I believe they escaped. Now, to where, I don't know, but it's my belief that they wouldn't commit suicide, that they escaped somewhere. And I'm wondering, because some of the reports that I've read, Rick, are that the plan that Adolf Hitler had was to get 1 million people out to Antarctica, and this would include his officers, his scientists, and his engineers, his top people he wanted to save. And is that possible? Let's talk about that when we come back. Dr. Richard Allen Miller, Vincent Finelli, USAprepares.com. Secret Nazi base under the sea in Antarctica. We'll be right back. Dr. Richard Allen Miller's with us, and if you'd like to contact him or go to his website and peruse some of the many books that he's written, oak-publishing.com, oak-publishing.com. And Power Tools for the 21st Century is his latest. It's available at $21, and it will be autographed. You can buy it right on the internet. You can send him an email, and that's rick@nwbotanicals.com. Right, Rick?
Yes, that is correct.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Rick, we're talking about the secret base that Admiral Byrd, a U.S. Navy, went to investigate in 1947. He brought 4,000 men with him. His ships were frozen in the ice. He endured 100-mile-an-hour winds of a storm that lasted 40 hours. It was a frightening experience. And what happened, Rick?
What I don't know. The Russian video, there's a Russian video, and it's pretty, credible. Shows the ships being attacked by Foo Fighters. These are small, like drones, and little tiny, discs in the air that had weapons, and then jets that did not exist at that time. And 3 ships were lost, and it shows them actually blowing up and sinking in the videos. So it wasn't that they got stuck in the ice and they lost the men that way. It was because there was a fighting going on. And the Russians and the English were all part of that 1960s event. They all 3 went in there to get them. So that thing with Nikita Khrushchev banging his shoe on the UN gavel, that kind of thing, all of that is fake. It was a false flag. The Soviet Union even was going after Germany at that time. That's in the 60s. That's the so-called Cold War. So really, Syria, all of this, they're all false flags for economic recovery and or whatever agendas might be in vogue at this moment.
No disagreement from us, Rick. So, Rick, there were some reports that the Nazis had a flying saucer back in the 1940s. Do you have any information about that?
No, I don't. They're very tall. Yes, there are pictures. There's lots of stuff. Of course, the reason we wanted those German scientists like von Braun was that very reason. They had technologies well beyond what we had. In fact, we're very lucky that the Manhattan Project completed like it did and ended that part of the war. Now, the war is probably still going on. And, I don't know. My work was all mostly in paranormal. The reason I got exposed to Antarctica was because of the bioluminescence, not because it was Nazis or technology that way.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And von Braun was brought to the United States from the Nazis. He was their rocket specialist, engineer, scientist, and he was very instrumental in our space program of the 1950s and 60s.
Yeah. He was the picture that Peter Sellers played in that movie, and so I have to tell you, there's more going on, and I don't have a clue. I try to put dots together, but realize that's all I'm able to do. I did see Antarctica. It does exist. That absolutely exists. I saw it, and so why would the Nazis not use it?
Mm-hmm. So you were down below the surface in the cavern.
Almost, not quite 30 miles down in where I was.
Mm-hmm. And
30 miles
it was
under the surface and it was light down there. That was my physics, was figuring out how that algae worked. I did. They had teams. That was one of the few things I did there. I was not lead. I was just part of a bigger team.
Wow. 30 miles down. There was light down there. Dr. Richard Allen Miller was there. I'm Vin Finelli. Class, above all, honesty and integrity. What happens next is up to you. Rick, thanks so much for being with us and sharing your experiences with the class today.